Hey guys, it's Jill and welcome back to my booktube channel. This video is going to be a March reading wrap-up and April TBR. Surprisingly, this month I actually read most of my TBR that I chose last month for March. I think only 2 books I didn't read, which was CC3 and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. However, I did only have 5 books on my TBR, so it's not like my TBR was like 8-10 books long. Anyways, though, I'm going to continue with the books that I read in March, and the first one that I started was Can I Steal You for a Second? It was on KU. I was so excited to read this. I heard pretty good things about this one, but I was pretty let down, I would say. I just found this was so insta-lovey, and the premise was so cute though. It was these girls all going on like a bachelor style reality show, and then it ends up being that 2 of the contestants end up falling in love with each other instead of with the main lead, which to me seemed like a very interesting concept. However, I didn't really like about this book how often they talked about the pandemic and like COVID. I'm assuming they were talking about COVID and how they had to like isolate, or I don't even remember the terminology now, but I just don't want to like read about that. It's just really not the vibe I'm looking for when I'm going into escape into a book. And like I said earlier, it was just way too insta-lovey for my taste. The main female character was just so obsessed with this other contestant pretty much from day one that they met. It was just not for me, unfortunately, and I did DNF this one. I don't remember how far I ended up getting into it, but I think it might have been like 30-ish%, and because I didn't finish, I'm not going to rate this one. The next book that I started was also on KU. This one was called When Life Gives You Lemons. This was another one that I was really excited to read, and based off of the blurb and everything, it seemed like my type of book, so unfortunately it wasn't, and I also DNF'd this one. So pretty much in this one, the main female character, Alina, it starts off that her and her ex-boyfriend break up, but then she meets another guy. They're kind of like childhood friends. It's kind of confusing because he remembered her, but she didn't really remember him. Based off what I can remember, at least, there was the single dad trope, which I read, I think maybe like one other book with that trope in it, and I don't mind it. I wouldn't say I like seek that out, but it just was fine, I guess. And my issue with this one was also that I found it insta-lovey, but also the main male character, Azir, when you were in his point of view, because it was dual POV, he just was not very nice. His thoughts and just like the way he thought about other women and stuff, I just didn't really like that. And there was also even an instance where I think they're trying to have like the enemies to lovers thing going on. To her face, he literally called Alina poor, which is just not the type of MMC that I'm trying to like swoon over. Unfortunately, I also thought both of the characters were pretty immature, and I think they're supposed to be like 27, 26 maybe, and 32, but they acted like teenagers in my opinion. As I said at the start, I DNF'd this one, I think around 20%-ish, and I didn't want to rate it on Goodreads, but I only very recently figured out how to say that you completed a book without doing a rating and saying just like in a comment that you DNF'd it. But when I put this book on my Goodreads, I rated it at 2 stars because I thought I had to rate it, and then in like the review I said DNF, and now I don't know how to change it back. So anyways, I'm going to leave it. The next book though that I read was Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. This one I did a reading vlog of, so if you want more in-depth kind of thoughts and a review of this one, I will link that video in the description bar below. This one, the main characters were Sophie and Max. They are objectors at weddings, and the way that they kind of met was interesting, pretty unfortunate, but the 2 end up doing these gigs kind of together as a pair, and of course they ended up falling for each other. One thing about this one though was that I found like they got together pretty quickly. There was also in the middle part like a friends with benefits kind of situation, which I don't know if I really like that with romance books. And I also felt like the whole objecting plot was kind of lost from the middle to the end portion of this story. But overall, I gave it 3 stars, and I honestly read this so fast. I read it in a day, I think. It was cute and fast-paced, just so unserious, and the stakes were so low that I feel like I just couldn't really rate this one super highly. And the next book that I finished this month was House of Sky and Breath, CC2, and I've said in a few videos already, but I took forever to read this book. I did end up liking it though. I do like the plot of this. It's very intricate and detailed and confusing at times, but it's good enough to keep my attention to want to read the next book after this. I don't really know about the romance though, which I've also said in other videos. I just don't know if I really like the couple together, and if I think they're really going to end up together in the end. And that's not really based on things that happen in here, like that's not a spoiler, that's just like my thoughts after reading this. I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars, and I feel like I probably would have given it 3 stars if it weren't for the ending. The ending was just such a shock to me, and I was so excited when I saw what was happening, and it definitely lived up to the hype of people saying how just crazy this ending was. I will say though, overall, I feel like the Crescent City story and everything I'm just not as into as ACOTAR or the few books that I've read from Throne of Glass thus far. But that's okay, honestly, because I'm still into it enough that I'm going to continue with the next book, and I'll likely continue with any other books that Sarah J Maas comes out with for this series in Crescent City. After that book, I read another on my Kindle, on Kindle Unlimited. It was Powerless by Elsie Silver. This was my introduction to the Chestnut Springs the Chestnut Springs series. Powerless is kind of a cowboy small town romance between Sloane and Jasper. Sloane's a ballerina and Jasper is a hockey player. At the start, Jasper saves Sloane from marrying this really not good guy that she was about to marry, and then they end up spending a lot of time together. It's also marketed as like, and it says on the back that it's a friends to lovers romance, but it really didn't seem like a friends to lovers romance to me, which I also explained in one of my videos that I posted before. I feel like I just keep referencing to videos from this month. Really, it just didn't read like the types of friends to lovers books that I've read in the past and enjoyed. Overall, I rated it 3 stars. I thought it was okay, but personally, I didn't really think that it lived up to the hype that I've seen on TikTok, Instagram, and BookTube. So I wanted to try though another book in that series because I didn't want to just like try one and then write off the whole series, just in case I found another one from the series that I did like a little bit better than Powerless, which I read another one this month too, which I'll talk about soon. But before that, we're going to talk about my favorite book of the month, and that is Crown of Midnight. This book really took me by surprise. I waited like 3 months between reading this book and Throne of Glass. I read Throne of Glass like early December, and I can't believe I waited this long to finally get to the next book in the series. I really loved all the characters, and just what I was imagining while reading this was so magical, and I feel like it's been a while since I've had a fantasy book just seem so real and easy to picture while I was reading it. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and without saying too much, our main character Selena, she's kind of trying to figure out secrets of the kingdom that she's in, and she's kind of getting the help of these 2 guys, and there's a little bit of a love triangle. It's just so good. I would 100% recommend reading and starting the Throne of Glass series if you haven't yet. I was also super impressed with the ending of this one as well. One character kind of figures something out which is so intricate as well as just very surprising, and overall I rated this one 4.5 stars. Okay, and then I went back to the Chestnut Springs collection. I don't know why I keep calling it collection. Series, and I was on Goodreads. I was looking up the Chestnut Springs, and I wanted to read the one that had like the highest rating, because Powerless had like not the highest rating out of all the books in that series. So I was like, okay, I was choosing between, I think, Reckless, and then I can't remember the name of it, but the one that Cade was in. So choosing between those ones, I ended up choosing Reckless, and I feel like I ended up choosing poorly because I did not like this book. I really haven't read many books that have this trope in it, and personally I'm just not a fan of it. Specifically with this book though, I was honestly pretty bored throughout the whole time, and I think there were over 400 pages, but nothing really happened. I felt like the main male character did not find something out that was like very important happening with the main female character, and what I didn't really understand about that whole situation was they had mutual friends, so how did he never find out for a long time the whole situation that she was dealing with? Sorry, I don't want to spoil anything and like say what the situation is, but if you've read this, you know what I'm talking about, and that just seemed like so unlikely in my opinion that he would have no clue about this happening to her. I also just felt like the characters really didn't have much more of a connection other than physical, which is just not how I like my romances to be. And my last issue with this is that it was also super insta-lovey. So yeah, I ended up rating this one 2 stars. So that's all the books that I've read in March, and now moving on to my April TBR. The first few books that I have are the next Throne of Glass books, which I need to look to see what they are. So one second. It is Air of Fire next, and then Queen of Shadows. I've put just those two on my April TBR because I don't think I'll be able to read all of the other ones, and also there's the tandem read coming up, so I don't think I'll be able to accomplish that this month. I'm just so excited and eager to continue with this series because of how much I've enjoyed the first few books, and I've heard so many people just say that the series gets better as you continue. So if I'm already like obsessed with it now, I just know I'm going to love it as I continue further. And next I have House of Flame and Shadow on my April TBR. This one I'm honestly a little bit intimidated by just because I took so long to read House of, what was the last one? House of Sky and Breath. I think I'm also probably going to take a while to read this one. It's pretty thick as well. I'm going to see how many pages there are. Over 800. I'm just hoping that it's maybe a little bit more fast-paced than Earth and Blood, than House of Sky and Breath, because I did feel like with House of Sky and Breath there were a few times where I felt like there was a little bit of a lull and that was a little bit slow compared to House of Earth and Blood. So I do have some high hopes for this one, and I am really excited with the direction based off of the last book that this whole thing is going to go in, and I wonder what Bryce and everyone is going to be up to in this one. Another fanrow that I want to read this month is A Fate Inked in Blood. I have such a pretty version with sprayed edges, and this is a new book that released in February of this year, I believe. I've heard kind of mixed reviews, but overall I am really excited to start this one and see how I like it. I think that it is the first of a series. Oh yeah, it says Saga of the Unfated, book 1. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but I'll read this month and see how I like it. The next books that I have for my April TBR, I don't have the physical copy of. So the next one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I've read a few Abby Jimenez books that I've enjoyed, so I'm really anticipating when this one comes out soon. And I honestly don't even know what it's about. I'm just gonna pick it up and start reading it, I think. And the next book that I want to read is called Too Sweet. This is a high school vampire romance, and I'm kind of unsure whether or not it's going to be my vibe, but it's a short story. I think it's about 200-ish pages on Kindle Unlimited, so I feel like I'll be able to get through that one pretty quickly. Another Kindle Unlimited book that I want to read is Ashes in the Star-Cursed King. This is the second book to The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and I'm pretty sure it's a duology, which I wasn't obsessed with the first book, but I am interested based off of how that one ended to see how everything else plays out. And another KU fanrow that I want to read is Spark of the Everflame. This is the first book of I think a 4 or 5 book series. I'm not even sure if there's still books to be released or not, but I've heard really good things about Spark of the Everflame, and it seems just right up my alley with the fantasy and the romance aspects. So I'm really hoping that I get to this one in April. This month I'm so excited because A Funny Story by Emily Henry is coming out, and I have read 3 Emily Henry books. I read Happy Place, which I gave 4.5 stars, and I also read People We Meet on Vacation and Beach Read, which I gave those two 3.5 I think. So I wasn't obsessed with those ones. I'm really interested to see how Emily Henry just like puts her classic like banter and fun twist on like a very weird situation that this describes on the back. And the last book on my TBR is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, and this is also a new release from earlier March, and I haven't read any Kennedy Ryan books yet. I've heard all over social media though just rave reviews of her work, so I'm really eager to give them a shot. But yeah, otherwise that is the end of this video. Those are all of the books that I read this past month, as well as the books that I want to read in April. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm really excited for April because I'm going to be finishing school, so I'll have a lot more time to be reading, which I'm just so stoked about. Of course, if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in today's video, or if you just have any general book recommendations, I would love to hear your thoughts in a comment below. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more book content, and I will see you in a new video next week. Bye guys!